Do you feel lightning striking your pocketbook? You should. Hi, I'm Mike Netter. This is California Free Radio. I'm here with Scott Piotr and Kurt English, and we're back and we're ticked off. Everybody out there, welcome. We're live on our X feeds, we think, at Netter Mike. We're live on Facebook at Rebuild California Groups. Thank you for the sharing team. Live on LinkedIn. And of course, on the California Patriot Coalition page. Everyone out there, last week I was on the show briefly. If you haven't heard the announcement, I don't know where you've been. I, Mike Netter, have decided to run for State Senate District 22 in the East San Gabriel Valley. And I've had a few people ask me, well, basically, why the hell are you doing this? And the reason I'm doing this is because if you don't think that our legislature, either by not paying attention or, as Kurt put it before in our pregame rant, is in on all that's going on in California with missing money, when I talk about lightning striking your pocketbook, you're 100% wrong. You really have to take a look holistically a little bit at how much money California processes. And again, I talk about this all the time before I let Kurt and Scott chime in here a bit. How much a budget of $318 billion is, and that's annually. That's not counting all the various other taxes that come out of Los Angeles government, which is $1 billion in the hole that come out of your city and county in your pockets every day. But we've lost track not only of how they're taking the money from us, but we've really lost track of where the money's going. And it's so popular, and I get it, to blame Gavin Newsom. But Scott and Kurt, I'm going to ask you a basic question. Do you think Gavin is really that bright?
No.
Right. He's all personality, no depth. He's a half an inch deep. Mile wide.
I don't think Gavin could balance a checkbook if he had two people with him holding out their hands to help him do it. So the reality is, what we have in California is we have politicians, Gavin included, across the legislature, the state senate, and the state assembly, that are too busy auditioning for their next job, or auditioning for something else, or paying attention to the people giving the unions giving them money, to really pay attention to the actual business of governing. Gavin Newsom is certainly an extreme example of it. He's gone from mayor of San Francisco to maybe king of California now, lieutenant governor in between. He's now off in Germany. He's always somewhere but governing California. But the people who really are supposed to be watching the store, who passed the legislation that enables Gavin to do what is the legislature. It's the state assembly and the state senate, where a supermajority simply not only crushes our hopes and dreams, but sucks the money out of our pocketbooks on a regular basis. And I'm finding it really hard to believe that those Democrats with the supermajority, I've met a lot of them, can't be aware that, let's call it for what it is. It's not alleged fraud, it's fraud. The popular ones are, we don't know where the $24 billion for homelessness is gone. We don't know where the EDD fraud for $20 billion is gone. We don't know where the train to nowhere. But every day, it took Nick Shirley something like from the time his plane landed with Amy Reichert to discover fraud in San Diego. It takes the U.S. attorney can barely keep up with what they're finding with the hospices in Los Angeles. The list piles on and on and on. And in Netter News, I put out an article this morning that Kurt actually sent us in his excellent pre-show notes, that California has kind of become accustomed to fraud. It's become kind of the normal thing when it comes to corruption, fraud, and these aren't even alleged. These are people that are being convicted, which just become part of everyday life, the fabric in California. And not only is the legislature complicit in not exposing it or not watching it, but the press is in not reporting it. If you remember, not too long ago, in a universe not too far away, Dana Williamson has been indicted for stealing from Becerra, who's running for governor, and two of her co-defendants pleaded guilty, and that story's kind of faded from the press. The person I'm running against, Susan Rubio, has been named as defendant number 19 for taking a bribe, which she was on the Baldwin City Council. Fades from the press, fades from the press, fades from the press. Rob Bonta, not too long ago, a couple months ago, spent money defending himself, allegedly, because he's probably a co-conspirator in what went on in Oakland, where the mayor got indicted. But we continue not to report on this in the mainstream. And that's why.
But Mike, you mentioned Oakland. The mayor of Oakland had her car stolen out of the parking lot at City Hall.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Are you sure she didn't steal the car to begin with?
Well, she could,
Oh, wait. That's the new mayor. The old mayor was indicted, wasn't she?
Yeah, there's so much crime up there. And that was the mayor that wouldn't let Trump bring in any National Guardsmen. She had her car stolen.
Because we let criminals run the streets. And that's part of our problem, everybody, is we have, again, I'm running on three things. I'm running on lower taxes. We can cut the state income tax for people making under 150 grand a year by 23% and barely dent our budget. We need to put our kids where we want them to be, running on school choice, less crime, and we need to start to breathe life back into our businesses instead of life back into the politicians' pocketbooks, because corruption is really running rampant. And that's the problem that we have. And if you are out there, and it's not even voting Democrat, not voting at all, not realizing that supermajority doesn't work. It doesn't work, everybody. It's not work. Look around in California. You have to grab your neighbors. You have to wake them up. You have to inspire people to vote and vote differently. And the reality is, and I say this over and over again, so little people will care about the June primary that barely a third of the electorate will participate in it. And why they're participating in it in Los Angeles County, your sales tax will go up because that's what they're counting on. The list piles on and piles on and piles on every day, making California not only unaffordable, but it's not going to our roads. It's not going to our infrastructure. And in fact, in Los Angeles City this week, the controller put out his report, said the only thing they're under budget on is actually capital improvements. They're not improving the city of Los Angeles. They're basically paying the employees more for less service. Wake up, California. This is what California Free Radio is all about. We have to report and we have to spread the word of what the mainstream press is not doing. And those of you trying to live your lives every day thinking that government is doing things to keep you safe, thinking that government has your best interest in mind, you're wrong. And you're wrong by almost any metric that you measure government by. Scott and Kurt chime in. I'm going to do some technical stuff here.
Go ahead,
It's
Kurt.
outrageous. It's outrageous how much money is not being accounted for, Scott, in California through fraud and an inability to account for it.
We just had some more revelation of some more fraud that was noted. I think we lost Kurt here, or what? Kurt disappears. Kurt comes back. Are you there, Kurt?
Frozen.
He's frozen. It's got his better side there. So we have new fraud coming in. Let's get Kurt back on here. Yeah, at least. Well, it's hard to tell if you're still frozen or not. Move, wave, make some motion. Latest in fraud. We have we have accounts now. We got Nick Shirley in town. He's going around finding fraud. 23-year-old. Give me a break. The mainstream legacy, decrepit, stupid media can't uncover fraud, but a 23-year-old YouTuber can uncover billions of dollars in fraud. I mean, that's embarrassing.
Well, but
If you were the
Scott,
legacy
let's talk
media,
about why. Let's talk about why. The liberal
why?
media,
You mean the fact that it's purposeful, that they've
yes,
got
the
an
liberal media
agenda?
doesn't want to cover anything that embarrasses Democrats, number one. Number two, there's something happening in the market of media that technology has made happen in the car business and many other businesses, which is you're squeezing the middleman out of the distribution channel. Look at what Kelley Blue Book and now online pricing of cars has done. It's hard for car dealers to make a large profit on a car now that car dealers make all their money on maintenance. Similarly, the liberal media paying people millions of dollars a year to read scripts that are written by other people makes them just a middleman of news. So the Nick Shirleys and all the people like him, Amy Reichert, who's been on this show, all the people that are actually out digging up real news, like the three of us, are going to collapse the intermediaries in the distribution channels of media and make media more efficient. Because why do you need to pay somebody $1 million to read the news when there's so many podcasts and so many streaming sources of news that are accurate? The legacy dinosaur media is losing money because they're losing eyeballs and they're losing advertisers. It's a natural progression.
Hold on, you're correct, and they're complaining as they do it. I don't want to go too deep on like the View thing and equal time and the FCC, but I want to go back to something you said, Kurt. It's easy for a 23-year-old to find because it's that obvious. He found it in Minnesota because they hung up a sign that was misspelled, Learning Center. It's pretty easy. It's been reported a couple years ago on the number of hospices in Los Angeles. What we don't stop to do is we drive around and say, who's funding them? It's our tax dollars. Kurt, I want to get into later in the show on what you put out on Planned Parenthood. I mean, forget whether you're for or against abortion for a second. How many abortion clinics does California really need? Statistically, look at even the number of abortions, even if you invite half the United States in, which Gavin Newsom has done, and I am pro-life, it doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense at all to have this many people employed in an industry funded by government. Kurt, that's a good time to bridge this story as I'm putting our show out here.
All right. Well, if that's what you want to talk about, Mike, it's just a typical California story. Money's laundered through Planned Parenthood.
No,
That
hold on. Talk about how much money they funded it with this week. $90 million.
$90 million. So what happens to that money, Mike? You know, the money goes to the NGO, the nonprofit. Then the money gets distributed somehow to whoever. And a portion of it ends up right back in Democrat Party campaigns and in the pockets of the friends and spouses and family members of the people who vote for the appropriations. We saw this in USAID with Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's wife getting a big fat paycheck that he voted for.
And I posted on the thing in that same article, every Democratic politician, Gavin Newsom included, so the money, which they turned the Republicans down, again, another reason I'm running for office, that money that went to Planned Parenthood, the Democrats refused to put in a stipulation that money could not be used for political lobbying. Yes, indeed, they picked your pockets, California, and they're plucking that right down into the pockets of the California politicians.
Well, it is illegal to use taxpayer money for political purposes.
Not when they feed it through an NGO like they do, and that money goes directly into the PAC for Planned Parenthood.
Mike was saying the PAC for Planned Parenthood gets a lot of that money, Scott.
I mean, they announced $90 million. How much you want to bet if you did an analysis of all of the people that work at Planned Parenthood that contributed money to Gavin Newsom, that you're going to find over $1 million? And when you look at it from that perspective, it's a really stupid. I mean, it's a bad return, right? You're putting 90 million in, and you're only getting $1 million out. Of course,
No, but Scott, it's also paying money to all these liberals to live on.
Yes. Well, you're saying basically that they're getting direct salaries,
Oh yeah,
but you're also getting the campaign contributions. So you're laundering the money and getting campaign contributions, and you're getting a lot of it.
well, the only solution to this, gentlemen, is to dramatically cut the size of government. Because if you double the size of government, you 10x the amount of corruption and theft and money laundering.
Which I want to add to cutting the size. One of the things we need to do is California government. We think of cutting the size of government as the U.S. government. We need to cut California employment by the state of California has grown almost 2.5 times just since Gavin Newsom became governor 6 short years ago. That's another reason that the state budget has ballooned and they can't keep track of the money.
Well, Mike, just to do the numbers, what was the surplus when Gavin Newsom took office? And 7 years later, what is the deficit?
Well, the deficit is right now somewhere between 8 to 20 million. We're not too sure because Gavin disagrees with the auditors. We had a surplus, but more importantly in the surplus, Kurt, which isn't talked about, we had a rainy day fund, which was required by us voting in of close to 100 billion. That rainy day fund, in other words, our reserves are hovering toward $10 billion. So it's worse than it appears because Gavin is even magically balancing this budget again with not a peep from the damn legislatures. Okay, on the Democratic side, which is again another reason Mike Netter for state senate, go to my feed, a quick pitch, and throw me a few bucks if you can to fight for you, because think of it as an investment. Because the reality is he's robbing our bank account for the next governor, which I expect to be a Republican, but no matter who it is, Gavin and the legislature are giddy-upping out of town like bank robbers with not only the budget, but the reserves themselves.
Well, what's happening is that Gavin Newsom is focused on running for president. He's a narcissist, and he actually thinks that he won't be held accountable for his massive failures as governor in California. And he's a person of very low moral character, as demonstrated by the fact that he was sleeping with his best friend's wife, who was his campaign manager. So this is a scumbag, too.
Right. Did he have any moral character at all?
This is a photo of him signing the $90 million budget or the gift to Planned Parenthood. I wonder how many people in these pictures have written checks to Gavin Newsom's
president. Checks from Planned Parenthood.
The one over his right shoulder looks like Cousin It with the hair covering the face.
It's probably Kamala Harris.
Right? Look at the hair is covering the face with the white suit, white or pink suit jacket there.
Yeah. I think that was his wife.
No, she's got blonder hair. She's a bottle blonde, I guess. But I think even in our chats, Stephanie is is complaining that NGOs are draining California. Well, it's liberal politicians, Stephanie.
Well, NGOs, another way to put NGOs, people need to understand NGOs, government outsources, right? You don't expect them to actually perform the abortions. They're going to hire somebody who's capable of doing the abortions to fund
No,
the
they
abortion.
just perform abortions on your wallet.
That is the one thing they don't outsource, right? They'll send the franchise tax board or one of these other agencies after you, and you're dead meat. And, they'll shake you till your pockets are totally empty.
A couple
But yeah,
people
I mean,
in the
NGOs.
comments. By the way, I want to jump in. Matthew, you're absolutely right. And Stephanie, you're absolutely right. We don't have the money, period, end of sentence. And Cal, I want to stress what one of our viewers just said. We don't have the money. And they never seem to address the fact that we don't have the money. I have news for you guys. I'm going to tell this to everybody. You guys ready for this? One of my confessions. I'd like to own a Ferrari and a really big mansion. You know why I don't, gentlemen?
You can't
It's
afford it.
expensive.
I don't have the money. And California has to learn. However, I'm working on my money, like some of my campaign, not working on your money. California doesn't have the money. And they think that they're going to raise taxes, which we'll rant about the billionaire tax later, but we don't have the money. We keep spending money, like 90 million is a lot of money, everybody, to a small group called Planned Parenthood. Why they're bitching that the poor federal government is taking money away from this, that, and the other. And by the way, you know what else 90 million would do? It would do a lot towards funding Prop 36, which we voted in, which isn't in this budget either.
Yeah, I wonder how many states have a smaller total budget than 90 million.
A lot. That's a good point, actually.
Let's see. Vermont, 7 million. I'm sorry, 7 billion. Wyoming, 5.5 billion. North Dakota, 4.5 billion. So 90 million, there's not going to be anybody that's smaller than 90 million. But, for crying out loud, 90 million for North Dakota is 20% of their budget.
What's Rhode Island, just out of curiosity, while you're looking them up?
It didn't go that low on the list. I'll see if Grok can tell me here.
I'm already looking it up. Let's see here. Current state budget for this year is $14.3 billion.
For Rhode Island?
Yep. Total funds, all spending. General revenue, 5.8. So let's see what California is, according to Grok.
297, according to...
Ooh.
297.86.
All right, so I got a question for candidate Mike.
That's the 24-25 budget. That's not the
$297 billion a year. What percentage of that is waste, fraud, and abuse?
Of the $300 billion annual California budget.
I think if you were to round it up, it's actually pretty easy. It's been estimated that we waste probably the total fraud in California over the last, let's just say 4 years to be conservative, probably is pushing 100 billion. I would say 25 billion a year is certainly to waste, fraud, and abuse. And when we say waste, I mean very conservative. And that's probably a fairly conservative number. That's about 8% of our budget in California we at least cannot account for. And 8% doesn't sound like a big number, but it is probably in the $25 billion range. And Kurt, that's a better question than you know for the following reason, because if you cut the state income tax by 23%, which is a raise for everybody, making under $150,000, let's not get too greedy, the state would only lose about $9 billion a year. And that would put more money into our economy. but they don't, and they keep raising taxes instead of cutting taxes because of what you're talking about, waste, fraud, and abuse. We have zero accountability. That's the problem with one-party rule.
Just one of the problems.
One of the problems, yes.
One of the problems.
And you're saying 25 billion, that's California's money, but you're saying that 100 billion is total fraud. In other words, they've wasted 75 billion of the federal taxpayer dollars.
I'm saying probably conservatively over the last 4 years, there's at least, I mean, we could go down the list and stack it up, but it would take all show, right? Between EDD, federal dollars, they get mixed, not count. I mean, let's even not call it fraud, but let's call it even that we spent 8 to 10 billion on healthcare for illegals. Just put that on the table. Then you have to put on the table the fact that take the 24 billion that we don't know where it went. We know it goes to NGOs, never had an accounting of it to fix homelessness. Now, for those of you doing math at home, that's about it's not hard to get to 20 billion a year. And by the way, everyone out there, California's budget has grown by over 100 billion a year in about 5 years, but our services haven't improved. So where do you actually think, Scott, that the money is going? It's not government's job is to serve us. Our job is not to serve the politicians.
Democrats don't understand that, Mike.
Apparently.
Well, do they not care about the graft, or are their friends getting the graft, so it's okay?
They're in on it, Scott.
The politicians themselves, or just
Their
the
family
Democrat
members,
Party?
their friends. Some of that money's laundered back into their campaigns. They're just stealing from us. It's a racketeering conspiracy of theft.
Yeah, well, you notice already, all these Democrats go into politics, and as poor men and walk out as rich men, whereas the Republicans tend to walk in as rich and they walk out poor, or they walk out poor, they walk in poor and come out poor. Why is that? I mean, why aren't they in jail? We know they didn't get it on their $175,000 a year salary.
Yeah, how did Ilhan Omar earn $30 million in 5 years of being in Congress?
Right, and how much tax did she pay on that? Supposedly it was her husband, her brother. I don't know. I get confused.
It's hard to differentiate the two
I don't know which sibling she's married to or which relative she's married to lately.
currently.
But
Well,
supposedly-
let's have something positive. There's something positive this week, Scott and Mike.
it rained in California.
On Sunday will be the 296th birthday of the father of our country, George Washington.
His real birthday rather than just
February
President's Day.
22nd, 1730.
Which is why he's not on our show tonight. But he is actually, is he voting in California?
Everyone
sure.
else is.
Only dead people.
So, Mike, can you give us an update on the Choice in Education Act, the Prop 13 petitions that are
Prop 13
circulating?
is making the ballot. Voter ID is making the ballot. It looks like the CEO Act, which is the school choice one, is about 500,000 signatures now. And we have about 5 weeks left. So we're feeling very optimistic on that one. So go to ceoact.org. That is the one, as per my newsletter, Netter News this morning, that needs the most help.
What are you saying? They changed their website. It used to be CaliforniaSchoolChoice.org. Now it's
No. That's two cycles ago. It's CEO Act, Children's Educational Opportunity. Keep up.
All right, as many of our listeners and viewers know, Scott Piotr ran for assembly in the 73rd Assembly District in 2024. But now there's a new candidate. Scott, can you tell us about Urson Russell?
Urson Russell is a longtime advocate for voter integrity, and he's actually been going around speaking all over the state. Excuse me, all over the state on how we can correct our voting system. And frankly, he got fed up enough that he said, "Enough of this! I'm going to run." So he's running against Cotty Petrie Norris, who I ran against also, who is about as liberal and leftist as you can get. She's bragging right now about the legislation she just enacted, which requires people who have gotten DUI convictions to use a breathalyzer to start their car. And it's not just 2 anymore. I think it's down to 1. I may be wrong with that. It may have been 3 down to 2. And so, you know, it's the nanny state. She's bragging about the nanny state. You know, it's like, oh, this has saved lives. Yeah, well, if we all stop driving cars, it would save lives too. But it doesn't mean that's what we want to do. You know, so you get some guy who's actually reformed and stayed sober for whatever many years, and he's still got to breathe into it in order.
Oh,
to
is this for life, Scott? For a lifetime?
Yeah, I don't know that it had a limit. I think if you're convicted, you're breathalyzing. It's, you know, I think I'd be moving out of the state.
By the way, for everyone out there, don't take it as that we don't know it. Just none 3 of us have been convicted for drug driving. So excuse our unfamiliarity with it. We had to invite Dave Min and have to ask him one night on it. So
yeah, he's a member of Congress who got in through voter fraud, and the last time. But let's see what happens this time. You know, businesses are leaving red states, as we know. One called Palantir, that's involved in the artificial intelligence revolution, left California for Colorado. But that didn't help because Colorado's becoming a nutty blue state. And now they're moving to Florida. And so think about all the businesses moving to Florida, all the money going to Florida, and how that's going to change the congressional map after the 2030 census, and how that's going to change the electoral college with the migration of people out of blue states like California.
There's
Illinois.
no state income tax in Florida, and DeSantis is actually trying to get rid of property taxes in California.
yes,
Because if you own your property, your home, free and clear, and you still have to pay a government an annual property tax, what he's saying basically is, well, then you don't own the property. You're paying rent, in effect, in perpetuity for every piece of property that you own.
Well, it's one thing if the property tax was only related to the expenses of maintaining your street and your street lights and your sewers. But as we know, the property tax money in California was funding schools. And so in the Serrano versus Priest California Supreme Court decision, they determined that all the money had to go up to Sacramento and be distributed on a per child basis to fund schools. It's crazy to fund schools with property taxes. And that's one of the reasons why they're so high in a lot of places, because they use property tax revenue for everything and not just for local property maintenance.
Okay, so good government guy that you are, how would you fund the public schools if you want?
I would let the CEO act. And then you talked about outsourcing government, the CEO Act, voucher, close every government-run school.
Okay, our candidate has something to say about this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. What people don't realize in California is that because of Prop 98 many moons ago, 40% of our general budget, okay, is required to go to funding schools, okay? So when the CEO Act actually doesn't increase your taxes, it reallocates that money so the parents have control. And I want to stress that very, very importantly, that the schools by definition are extremely inefficient. And we have a declining student population. We'll bring Kevin back on our show at some point and explain that. But the reality is our schools, we spend more per student than anywhere else except New York because of New York City, and we have horrible results. But California, we are mandated to spend 40% of our general budget on schools, not even counting the lotto money, not even counting the rest of it. And the CEO Act allows for each parent to get $17,000 per kid per year so they can make schools more efficient by sending them to the school of their choice. So in reality, it doesn't increase taxes, it just redistributes that money. The
Well,
property tax
in effect, it'll save money, right? Because
correct.
because the LA Unified is spending what, $25,000 a year per pupil.
Yep.
So
Oh, oh no.
if
Yes, but that's just the tip of the iceberg that they're spending. We could do a whole show on the depth of how LA Unified spends money with no results. And that's not counting the
so
federal money that they get in, etc.
under the CEO Act, every student that's in LA that switches to a private school saves the state $8,000 a year.
That's one way
Yeah.
to look at it. Actually, the state still gets their money for overhead, but the reality is the kids, because this is really about the kids, actually can get a better education and one that the parents want them to get. I'm not even just talking Christian. I'm talking for kids good at math, you could send them to a math school. Your kid wants to be better at auto repair, you could send them to a school that specializes in that. And if you don't use that money, it can basically be put away for their college education. It gives you control over the money that you're paying.
And the only downside is that hardly any college these days is worth going to because they're so woke.
Well, at least you have
Even
your
USC, right? Right,
Yep.
Kurt?
Uh, I have a friend who's on the board of trustees of a very large university in America. He predicts over 100 universities and colleges will go broke in the next 10 years.
Oh, I hope the number's much bigger than that.
Over 100 is still a big number.
My son has 5 kids. He just welcomed number 5 in 2 days ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you for him and me as grandpa. But the he's homeschooling his kids, and he doesn't anticipate that any of his kids are going to go to college. Even if they're in engineering backgrounds, they're going to get privately educated, not through any kind of a college system.
Well, wait a minute, Scott. There are colleges worth considering for Christian, conservative, and traditional parents. Hillsdale, Grove City, Liberty, Patrick Henry. There are a number of Christian schools that have not compromised like Grand Canyon and Westmont have.
But hold on, gentlemen. I want to take a quick thing here. It is not my job to tell you how your kids should be educated. Fair enough? Okay?
Fair enough.
If you want to send them to a liberal arts school and want them to dye their hair purple, hey, good for you. My choice. Okay? And this is exactly what we're trying to give parents the ability to do. Hey, if you want to send them to liberal arts school, great, do it. If you want to send them to get the walk out to a school that walks on an ice, to an ice protest, I wouldn't recommend it. But hey, do it. But
no, I got to disagree with you there. That's illegal. If you spend taxpayer money on politics and politicking kids, that's not acceptable.
That's not my point. You need to have the ability to take your kids out. And though the 3 of us may have been able to afford to do that, for most parents, they can't because they have jobs. And it's time we brought school choice or the CEO Act into California so parents can make decisions for their children. And I'm not disagreeing with you there, but my point is, I don't want to fight it. I also want to put out there too, when people talk about homeschooling, and there's a lot of talk on the horizon, how, oh my God, this might hurt homeschooling. Homeschooling is under attack. Do you gentlemen know how homeschooling is run in California?
But do you know more parents as a percentage are homeschooling their kids now than any time in the last 100 years?
Do you know how they're authorized to do it in California?
Tell us.
It falls under the charter schools. Okay. And so for those of you that homeschool, when you get licensed or the ability to do it, it falls under the arm of charter schools. And California government is chipping away and has been doing very rapidly at the ability of charter schools to authorize homeschooling. So while they aren't directly naming homeschooling, this has been very controversial. I want to hit it between the eyes. They are chipping away at the ability of charter schools, which homeschooling falls under, and eventually you won't have the ability to homeschool your kids when they strip the charter schools of their ability to authorize you to tutor or to homeschool your kids. So be aware of that, because again, as I often say about government, part of the problem is in California, we have to learn a lot about it. And you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to worry about where your water comes from, how the educational system works. But you do today. You shouldn't have to worry about how we generate electricity, but you do today. And you shouldn't have to compete with your government for real estate, which you're having to do in the Pacific Palisades, right, gentlemen? I want to jump to that.
Fire.
What are they doing in the Pacific Palisades? The government, which allowed land to burn, and there's no screaming houses to burn, people to die, has very little accountability for it. Partially the state, partially the city, partially the county, partially DWP. It's not a conspiracy. Well, maybe it is now buying up land at Pacific Palisades. So people who, for low income or affordable housing, can have an ocean view. For those of you that can't afford an ocean view, maybe like me, if your house had burned and you hadn't worked for a living, you'd be able to afford one now, because the state, again, back to comments that we see, the state, we can't afford it, but the state apparently thinks they should be competing with the real estate business.
So why is it now all of a sudden a human right to have housing provided for you, especially housing with an ocean view or within a mile or two of the ocean? I didn't see that in the Constitution.
It's,
Am I right on this?
yep.
Where am I wrong?
You're not, and it's amazing and it's unbelievable, and strikes us as very real. Thank you, Sue. Yes, I'm looking at this. I love this comment, by the way. Corruption within generation of entitled brats. That is a perfect way to say that. Thank you, Sue. Corruption within generations of entitled brats. Sue, with all due deference, I'm stealing that.
Hey, entitled brats, the long line of lineage within the Pelosi and Newsom backgrounds, right? It's like they're a bunch of entitled brats.
And by the
Well,
way,
and one of the reasons, Scott, we get them is because of all the voter fraud. And earlier, Mike talked about Nick Shirley coming to California. And he said that there were dogs voting in California, dead people, people registered to vote who are 125 years old, about 14 years older than the oldest American living. And in one home, there were 100 plus voters. And this has been going on for decades. In 1996, there was a photo in Venice of 50 people being registered to vote in a 2-bedroom boarded up house that was not occupied.
that is all over the place. And by the way, I also want to state, and I touched on this last week when we talk about voter ID, which we need to get on the ballot. When I registered to run for office, it is in the state code. I do not have to show my identification. I love to hear the argument against that. That is actually in the state code. I am Mike Netter. I have ID to show it. I'm not sure Gavin Newsom is Gavin Newsom, but you do not have to show identification to run for office. Oh, but you have to swear on a sheet of paper it's you. Yes, you do. But the reality is, there's a lot which needs to be changed about California, and the people that are making the rules don't even have to show their ID as to who they are making the rules. Gentlemen, do you find
Hey,
that strange?
if you have to show a voter ID, it's really a lot harder to cheat.
Yeah,
And, you know, why else would you mail millions of ballots to everybody that's on the voter rolls, even though a lot of them are dead or moved, which disqualifies them from voting? Now you got all these literally these millions of official ballots floating around that anybody could pick up, fill out, and sign. And I got to tell you, I watched some of the signature verification on one of these recent elections. It's a joke. The signature on the mail-in ballot does not even have to be close to what the real signature is on the card. We challenged them. They put them aside. They went and reviewed them, and didn't matter. He approved every single one of them.
Hold on. I want to stop you right there for a very important point. Because Scott's old school. You can't tell by his youthful looks, but Scott is old school. Scott,
So what does that mean?
I'm going to tell you.
Yes.
Over 14 to 16 million of the registrations in California out of 22 million come from online. I'm going to say that again. When you move or register or come in and are a new registration, you register online. Now, Scott and Kurt, you two are pretty bright guys. At least you were the best I could get for the show. How do you put your signature on file when you register online?
Now, the way Orange County Registrar, to their credit, does it, you sign up online, they mail you a form with it already filled out, and you have to wet sign it and mail it back in order to be official, at least in Orange County.
However, since you can sign up same day registration online before you get that form, even in Orange County, Scott, how would they compare your signature? Because they don't have to have it back under state law for you to vote. Back to
Well,
you.
why do you think it takes 30 days to count the votes after the election?
You get where I'm coming from, though, and they're supposed to
ridiculous.
send it out. Hold on.
Well,
They're supposed to send it out. However, most of the big counties admit they don't. But again, I want to stress that when you register online, okay, even in Orange County, you may get that form after your vote's already been cast. So I'm scratching my head going, exactly what signature are they comparing it to? Hubbada, hubbada.
Hey, even worse. A couple years back, I went to renew my driver's license, and I went to the extra effort to get the real ID. But I'm going through the California DMV, and they have these signature pads that are a joke. They're like 2 inches by 3 inches, and you have to sign your name in the middle, and they're so worn out into grooves, you can't put a legible signature on it. Plus, I think, for those geeks that are out there, the DPI, dots per inch or whatever, you look at it and you go, modern day stuff would be in the high hundreds or thousands, right? This is like 80. I mean,
they're not. By the way, not only are they not comparing, if you notice on your credit card form, being a tech guy, when you sign, you could sign with a smiley face. We've lost Kurt. When Kurt comes back, I want to tell a really funny DMV story to talk about how insecure it is. Or maybe I'll just tell it now. Okay.
I also finished my DMV story. The guy asked me, "Do you want to register to vote?" No, I'm already registered. Then a little bit later, he asked, "Do you want to register to vote?" And I said, "No, I'm already registered." And then he does all of this tapping under the computer, okay, you can sign your little pad now. And I said, well, and he points to the screen above. This is what you're signing. And it says, I'm re-registering to vote. I go, I'm not re-registering to vote. Change it. I mean, 3 times he forced it down me. If I would have just signed okay, yeah, whatever. You never read everything, right? I'd have been re-registered probably as a Democrat. I mean, I'm there, I'm diligent, I'm paying attention, and 3 times, and it almost snuck by me. Imagine if you're not really paying attention. You're going to get re-registered to whatever party this guy wants you to be part of. Okay.
So I was at the DMV a few years ago, about 4, a long story, but I had to go in because they screwed up my renewal of my license and I was flying. And I'm going to give you the short version of it, but the short version of it was, after 2 weeks of trying to work it out, I was at the DMV counter, finally saying I needed to get my license right then, which I'd called ahead and done all the proper things. And there was a very nice black gentleman about in the window next to me. And they are giving him an eye test. And he said, I can't take the eye test. And the girl was like, why can't you? He goes, I'm actually here for a California ID. I'm legally blind. Okay. And I'm not here for hold on, it gets better yet. He goes, I'm not here for a driver's license. She goes, well, yes, you are. You have to take an eye test. He goes, I can't take an eye test on this pad, which they had, because I'm legally blind. Wait, there's more. This is how secure the DMV is. This gets even better. So the girls, and I'm arguing with the girl, says, oh, I'm going on break now. She's doing 2 windows at once. And I said, you're not going on break. You're going to finish my driver's license. They sent me over to take my picture. Mike Netter, I took the eye test. They found out I could still see a truck coming at me, even if it was driven by a truck driver who doesn't have a license.
Or doesn't speak English.
So I'm waiting at the window. The blind gentleman, he has convinced them he's there for just an ID and he's legally blind and can't take the test. The girl says, okay, I'm finally going to go. Here's your driver's license. She hands me a driver's license that has my name on it and the picture of the black gentleman.
The guy that was legally blind, you mean?
The guy that's legally blind.
In front of you?
His picture is on my driver's license. And I said, there's a problem here. And she says, what exactly is it? I said, I'm not trying to create a row, but my guess is when people look at this picture, they're going to say, hey, doesn't look like you. And of course, the blind guy got
even a Democrat looking at the license might have to
make this up. And they hand the blind guy a picture who couldn't see it because he's blind. And I'm like, hey, that's your name with my picture. And he goes, how you look? I go, pretty damn good. And you look good yourself. But let's say we get this fixed. Okay. So that is.
Did he walk out with his license or his California ID with your picture on it?
We fixed it at the window, but my point is they printed my name with his picture and his name with my picture, and he could see well enough to go, hey, I'm not a white guy. And I go, hey, I'm not a black guy. And people will probably pick up on this right away.
So that's the kind of incompetence we can expect from the DMV.
Well, the guy's legally blind. The black guy's legally blind, but at least he can see enough to know that there's some white dude on my driver's license.
Well, they didn't care. That's competence in DMV.
So my point is, anyway, back to voter registration, which we probably shouldn't be trusting with the DMV. Let's put that down for 1 second.
Oh, no, but we need to do healthcare and let the government take care of our healthcare. Maybe you'd turn out black if you went to the right doctor.
Michael Jackson tried to go white, didn't work out well for him, but let's put that down for 1 second. Here's my point, everybody, okay? We have a system which needs to be fixed. It is actually encased in state law. You do not have to show an ID to run for state office. You can run for federal office, but not to run for state office.
So is Mike Netter actually running for office, or was it somebody else?
Well, actually, I'm running for State Senate 22, but I'm now on the ballot as Gavin Newsom Republican. I figure that it'll help me get a few more votes with name recognition.
There's no such thing as a Gavin Newsom Republican.
I'm doing the best I can, guys, to get on.
All right, from DMV incompetence to DEI incompetence, the San Francisco Public Schools Superintendent, Maria Sue, although they have a deficit, paid an equity consultant named Joe C. Feldman $182,000 for the brilliant idea of suggesting that they make 41% a passing grade and 80% an A, and they declared that homework is racist.
Well, homework is racist. Everybody
How
knows
are we
that.
going to compete in a more competitive technological world with idiots like that in charge of education?
Wait a minute. When I was a kid, I was racing through my homework because I usually was doing it the last minute. Isn't that the same thing, or am I confused here, Kurt?
No, you're confused.
No, you're racist. Let's get this straight. Well, they had to save money rather than teaching those little brats to be able to give the teachers raises, as depicted on our little cartoon here. San Francisco Unified. Let's see if I read this right here. San Francisco Unified are closed. They're on strike because they couldn't reach a deal and 50,000 students are out of class. Primarily because the United Educators of San Francisco, in other words, this teachers union, is striking over pay and benefits, pushing for a 9% raise and fully funded family health care for life. So they'll never have to pay a dime for insurance for them and their families for the rest of their lives. It's a sweet deal if you can get it.
It's just stealing from the taxpayers.
Well, I'm sure that the school district would gladly give them all of these requests, except that they're broke.
Well, sometimes they do it anyway. Because the teachers unions help elect Democrats, and they just reward them by giving them as much money as they ask for.
So
part of the money laundering scheme.
So the teachers retirement unit is called the State Teachers Retirement Union. It's STRS for short, retirement system. And the last I heard, they were underfunded to the tune of, I want to say 58 cents on the dollar. So when they should have $1 in there, and a lot of programs are underfunded. So let's say they should have 90 cents in there. Instead, they've got 58 cents, but they still keep paying full benefits to those teachers that are already retired, as though the money is going to magically appear somewhere.
Well, some of it is contracted, but also the state legislature.
But it's a pyramid scheme, right?
Well,
at the end of the day, the teachers the young teachers that are paying into the system, the money will be gone before they get there.
Well, they're not giving the newly retired teachers the same deal that they gave the teachers that retired 30 years ago, number one. Number two, because they've done such a bad job and the standard of living of those retirees has consistently gone down because they're broke, the state legislature added 1 month's extra payment per quarter, so 4 extra payments a year to their pensions of the public school teachers.
The whole system we have is built on kicking the can down the road, and those
politicians are good at that.
Okay,
so you get elected, Netter. In effect, the Democrats have kicked the can down the road, so you can deal with it because they're not.
That's okay. I'm okay dealing with it because once again, what we need to do, we need more people like even the Carl DeMaios and the David Talabacas and just Suzette Valadares, Shannon Grove types, the Dollies to scream. Because here's what we have. Again, we have unaccountability. And I'll even say not the ones I mentioned, but many of our friends on the Republican side. You got to stand up and keep exposing night after night and day after day the fact of how much money we're wasting. They're kicking the can down the road, but the reality is, start thinking about this again. Where did just $100 extra billion in the budget go? Why are these politicians on the supermajority so afraid to speak up, take on the unions, do whatever? Because obviously they're looking for their next job. And I want to close the show on this to say very clearly, what we're voting on isn't getting funded. Be it Prop 36, be it whatever else we're doing, it's not getting funded to keep us safe. What we're doing with our politicians, we think they're watching the store and they're not. They're out there casting their resumes around on a continuous basis looking for their next job. And Gavin Newsom is just the poster child for it. It's simply our state assembly and state senate, which I'm running for, 22. Go to my feed, do contribute. It takes a little bit of money to run. As Scott and Kurt know, we're going to focus a lot on digital. But we need to get people out to vote to understand that when you invest in a campaign just a little, a few bucks in a campaign and one vote for a Republican voting for change is the biggest investment you could make. It will change the way California is run. And they've been kicking the can down the road, but we want to put up a wall against that can. And we want to make sure that the things that you work so hard for, we can take back. You want to build a business, you should be able to in California. You want your car not to be broken into or stolen, even if the mayor of Oakland should be able to do that. Should be able to send your kids where you want them to be able to send them. And you shouldn't pay, whether it's property tax, personal income tax, cell phone tax on a system which doesn't work. You should not be paying such an enormous amount of your money to the state of California. Forget the feds for doing a bad job. I want you to think about this as we end the show. They keep talking about upping minimum wage because it's not a living wage. How about we keep minimum wage maybe where it's at right now, maybe even lower it a bit, make your burrito supreme cost less, but change the amount of taxes which are taken out of people's paychecks. Let the state take less so you don't have to pay more. And that's a lot of what I'm running on. Kill the fraud, kill the ineptness, let the state take less so you don't have to pay more. We're California Free Radio. Gentlemen, any closing rants?
Hey, let's clarify something. You sit there and you're running for state senate. How many senate seats do we need to stop the supermajority?
We need approximately 8.
And how many do we have now?
We need about, we can actually take this cycle. We could take about 6 of them. And by the way, okay, Assembly and Senate, we could probably take even more this cycle. I won't even say it's a red wave. I think it's a red awakening, an awakening in California. Every seat can be taken. The seats that we lose, we're not losing because we're slaughtered by Democratic votes. We're simply slaughtered by people not voting.
By Republicans not getting out and vote.
Republicans not getting
Or
voted.
independents who are leaning our way.
We're really close. We're really close to taking back the Senate and stopping the supermajority in the Senate, which will stop us. They won't be able to raise taxes. They won't be able to do urgency legislation. They won't be able to put things on the ballot for you to vote on without Republican votes in the Senate. So that's a big deal. And Mike's seat is one of those seats that will help us get to that majority. We only need like 3. And so that's a big deal. And even if you get someone like Mike who will stand out in the Senate and articulate what's right and what's wrong, like Carl DeMaio has been successful at doing in the Assembly, like Kevin Kiley did before him, and like Bill Asali did before him as well in the Assembly. Get somebody in the Senate who will muck up the works, make it slow and hard to pass bad legislation, and make all of these guys go on record and point out what's wrong. That's the kind of guy Mike is. So putting him in the Senate will help the whole state in kind of clarifying, slowing down the crap that's going on in basically a one-party system. And so it's really important. If you guys haven't already, you need to go and donate money to Mike. You can go to @NetterMike on X, and he's got a link for donations there, and he's got a website that'll be going up soon. So pay attention on his X feed for that. But he needs money to get the word out. Even though he's going to be efficient and he's going to attack it digitally, he still needs some money to get that out. So you want somebody who's going to be a voice for us in Sacramento. Mike's the guy. I
No
thought I'd put the plug
consultant.
in.
We're the people. Those of you that know me, thank you, Scott, very, very much. I've been doing this for 5 years. We started the recall on fumes and we ended with an inferno. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make a little bit of money. And what we're going to do is not even metaphorically, well, metaphorically, I should say, we're going to burn that house down. California Free Radio. It's time we lit up the state to take back our government. It's your state, California. Do something about it. We will see you next week, and you'll be hearing me yapping in between. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Tune in, share the show. Like I said, go to my feed at Netter Mike, go to Facebook, go anywhere you can. Throw a few bucks. It's an investment in your future, because let's face it, why the rest of the nation last week was freezing their posterity off, we had nice weather, and you really don't want to move. I know you don't. And I want to make it so you don't have to.
We're going to be here next week, Behind the Blue Curtain, and we'll get into Gavin Newsom in Munich and how he is not American and not representing our interests.
But he never